Once Upon a Time in America isn't just a gangster film, it's an epic, a poetic, tragic saga that spans decades and explores the dark heart of the American dream. Directed by the legendary Sergio Leone, it's a movie that was misunderstood at release, butchered by studios, and eventually revered as a cinematic masterpiece. Today we're diving into the legacy of this towering classic, its history, direction, performances, themes, and the mark it left on the gangster genre. I explore the crime, morality and humanity behind cinema's most powerful films. If that's your thing, please consider subscribing. Sergio Leone, the Italian master behind the Dollars trilogy and Once Upon a Time in the West, spent over a decade developing Once Upon a Time in America. It was his passion project, a film he envisioned as the ultimate statement on friendship, betrayal, time and memory. Based very loosely on Harry Gray's semi-autobiographical novel The Hoods, Leone created a sprawling narrative that blended myth, memory, and the harsh realities of life. Believe it or not, Sergio Leone turned down directing The Godfather to pursue this film. Sergio Leone shot over 10 hours of footage, intending to create a two-part epic. The final restored version runs nearly 4 hours, but even that is not the full vision he hoped to bring to screen.
They sent me the Sergio's outline for the film. The outline is 200 plus pages, the outline for a film. It's twice as long as most films.
The film's production was so ambitious, it became one of the most expensive European productions ever made. Many scenes were filmed in Paris, Montreal and Rome. Actor James Woods later recalled that Leone barely even spoke English, but would direct perfectly through tones and gestures. De Niro and Leone even had deep creative disagreements, and yet they both pushed through to achieve the greatness. The film premiered at the Cannes Film Festival in 1984 to critical acclaim. In Europe, audiences saw Leone's 229-minute cut, an incredible, non-linear, crazy epic film.
Dollars trilogy, how can you ever top that? And then he managed to top it. Well, Once Upon a Time in America, and it's like, there's almost like, how far can you go?
But in the US, the studio feared the running time and that the complexity of the film would alienate mainstream audiences, so they re-edited it without Leone's consent, cutting it down to just over 2 hours and rearranging the story in chronological order, completely destroying its rhythm and emotional depth. This version was a critical and commercial disaster in the US, with critics calling it incoherent.
The first two versions, which were the initially released ones, which got very, very bad reviews, were not only shortened, but the time sequence was changed. The film is a series of flashbacks to two different periods, plus the present, which is 1968 in the film. And by going back and trying to arrange it chronologically, which is what happened when the film was released initially, it doesn't make any sense.
The original cut remains treasured in Europe, and over time efforts were made to restore the film. Martin Scorsese and the Film Foundation worked with the Leone estate to reassemble the footage.
This meticulous reconstruction brings us several significant steps closer to a version representing the grand vision of its creator, the one and only Sergio Leone.
In 2012, a near-complete 251-minute version premiered at Cannes, again receiving a standing ovation. It's crazy that famous film critic Gene Siskel called the butchered version one of the worst films of that year, and then when he saw the film as it was intended to, he called it one of the best films he'd ever seen. So it's crazy how much they destroyed this film when it first came out.
I remember that I asked the money people who controlled it at that time if we could we'll have two previews, one with the way they'd like to see it and one with Sergio's version. And we did it, as I remember, I thought in two theaters, then simultaneously the next night. Sergio's version was the one that we all felt was better.
Leone was so protective of his vision that he apparently cried when he saw what the US studio had done to his film. His health deteriorated afterward and he never directed another movie. He died 5 years later, leaving this film as his final and most personal masterpiece.
Worked on the movie a long time, almost a year, if not a year, a whole year. I don't think Sergio wanted to finish it. I think he kept going on. He was trying to decide certain things. He would try and figure how we're going to arrive in New York, and we're deciding and this and that. It just went on and on. But I think he didn't want to stop shooting. I understand that, though.
Central characters are David, nicknamed Noodles, played by Robert De Niro, and Max, played by James Woods. They both grow up hustling and stealing before ascending the criminal ranks during Prohibition. Along the way, Noodles falls in love with Deborah, played as a child by Jennifer Connelly, and as an adult by Elizabeth McGovern, but he just can't get that love he wants because his entire worldview has been destroyed and corrupted by his life of crime. This film is told like a dream, drifting between past and present, blurring memory and regret until you're not even sure what's real anymore, and if David, Noodles, is just trapped in the echo of a life that's already gone. Robert De Niro delivers one of his most nuanced performances as Noodles. He plays the character across decades, embodying the transformation from a young, streetwise thief to a haunted, aging man full of regret.
What have you been doing all these years?
Been going to bed early.
This is a performance full of silence, particularly in the later scenes, and those moments just speak louder than words ever could. De Niro famously requested to film many of his scenes twice, with and without subtle gestures, giving Leone multiple options in the edit. One of the standout moments is Noodles visiting the old neighbourhood. His eyes just capture years of loss with a single glance. James Woods' Max is the perfect foil for Noodles, ambitious, manipulative and charismatic. Woods brings a sense of urgency and danger, making him one of the most complex villains, I guess, in crime cinema, even though there's a real friendship these two men had growing up.
You'll carry that stink of the streets with you the rest of your life.
I like the stink of the streets. It makes me feel good. I like the smell of it. It opens up my lungs. And it gives me a heart out.
Elizabeth McGovern as the older version of Deborah, the love of Noodles' life, plays it with such grace, hinting at the deep pain that lies under her character's facade because she loves Noodles, but she knows he's a bad person. Their restaurant reunion scene is a masterclass in unresolved love and emotional tension. So we obviously look back at young Noodles, played by Scott Shoesman Tyler, and a young Max, played by Rusty Jacobs. These young actors really provided a great emotional foundation. There's just a sense of play to what they were doing, but these two were really setting the foundations of becoming prolific gangsters, but they do it with a childhood purity, and then there's escapism to it and a sense of fun, but you do feel this impending doom as both these kids are becoming old before their time and opening themselves up to a world that they really shouldn't be getting into. Jennifer Connelly, in her debut role as young Deborah, gives a strikingly mature performance. Her brief but memorable appearance really lingers with you. You could tell that she was just a movie star at such a young age. Sergio Leone's direction in this film is meticulous and meditative. His signature style is long takes, so be prepared for a slow film. Close-ups, lingering silences, and he just creates a dreamlike, drifting atmosphere. Rather than rushing through, this isn't like Goodfellas or Casino. I'm not saying those films rush through, but there's not crazy, wild, frantic editing like what Scorsese does. He only lets scenes breathe, focusing on the emotional story, and everything underneath the surface is what he's trying to bring up, slowly but surely. He said his vision for the film was for it to feel like a memory, fragmented, unreliable, but deeply personal. The cinematographer, Tonino Dellicoli, captures the film's distinct errors with breathtaking detail. From the Prohibition era, amber-hued backrooms and smokiness, every frame is like a painting in this film. The colour grading shifts subtly through time periods, give each decade a distinct tone. The recurring shot of the Manhattan Bridge framed through a tenement archway is among the most iconic in film history and was used for the film poster. It's such a memorable image. Ennio Morricone's score is arguably one of his greatest. The recurring themes, particularly Deborah's theme and the wistful childhood memories, these pieces of music evoke a deep and aching longing and nostalgia. Morricone actually composed much of the music before filming, and Leone would often play the score on set to create the mood and atmosphere and the emotion. So that score doesn't just accompany the film, it really does define it. It's one of the most scores I've ever heard that completely embodies everything about what you're watching. The non-linear storytelling is actually so well done. It doesn't just cut between past and present, it drifts. Moments bleed into each other the way that memories and dreams do, where you can't always tell if you're remembering something that happened or imagining it how you wish it did. It takes us back to youth, hope, potential, friendship, and the next second drags us into quiet, somber, lonely present times. It's jarring, but intentionally so. Every cut from young to old Noodles feels like he realises the brutal shock of realising how much of his life has slipped away and how many mistakes he's made. The world has moved on, his friends have gone, the places he knew have changed, and what's left is this haunting awareness that time doesn't just pass, it lingers, and all that's left for him is regret. The pain that he caused, the decisions that he made. What Leone captures so perfectly is that mixture of nostalgia and guilt that comes with age, the desperate wish to step back into a moment, to fix something, or maybe just feel it again, but knowing you never can. And with Noodles, it translates to terrible gangster crimes, so it's even harder for the guy, obviously. But, you know, he did it, so you can't really have too much sympathy for Noodles, but Leone really works to make you do that. But somehow, some way, Leone deals with black and white and societal norms and throws them out of the window. He says you're going to see Noodles do something unforgivable, and I'm going to force you to hang out with him for many hours. But Leone, like I say, he spends the whole film determined to make you do that. And the fact that he makes you have any sense of empathy for Noodles is a colossal achievement. When we see Noodles standing there as an old man, that sense of every decision we make, no matter how small, locks a door behind us. Maybe that's why films like Once Upon a Time in America feel so sacred now, because they remind us of something that we're losing. Not just the stories in cinema, but the way we told them. We've traded genuine reflection for just fast pace, and we don't really want to do films that are ambiguous anymore. We want explanations. We want answers straight away. And that's sad, because these films don't just show us life, they slow it down long enough for us to feel how it passes. The legacy of Once Upon a Time in America is profound. It helped define what a gangster movie could be. Not just an action-packed saga, but a slow, lyrical meditation on loss and disillusionment. Its influence can be seen in works like The Sopranos, The Irishman, and even Tarantino's use of non-linear storytelling. It opened the door for these sorts of films to become art films without losing their edge. And if you haven't watched the restored version of Once Upon a Time in America, do yourself a favour. Take 4 hours and sink into Leone's vision. It's very slow. You might not even understand it, but you will experience one of cinema's greatest epics. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, click on another video on the screen now and subscribe. Thanks for watching. Let me know what you think of this incredible movie in the comments below, and I'll see you guys next time.